Today on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the Week 1 matchup between the LSU Tigers and the UCLA Bruins. Big matchup coming up here in Week 1 for both of these teams. We've got LSU on one side. They were in a bit of a rebuilding season last year. LSU, of course, after their 2019 season where they won the national championship game, LSU lost quite a bit. And so 2020 was a bit of a down season for this team, but I expect them to be right back to being an SEC contender in 2021. As for UCLA, this is a team that could be considered a Pac-12 dark horse for sure, and especially after their big win last week over a pretty decent Hawaii team. So, UCLA completely dominated Hawaii in Week 0. So this is a UCLA team to not be sleeping on heading into this 2021 season. So this is actually going to be one of the more intriguing matchups, I think, of Week 1 here with LSU and UCLA. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started with this preview and prediction here today. So obviously, this matchup is on Saturday, September 4th, Pasadena, and it's going to be at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, once again in UCLA. So the Bruins do have the home field advantage here for this matchup. Even though UCLA really did not fill the stadium much last week against Hawaii. But the line currently says LSU by 3. So the Tigers are favored in this matchup as of now. Over-unders at 66. And the ESPN FPI also has LSU 53.2%. So overall, spread and the FPI are both extremely close for both of these teams, which is not very surprising considering you got two teams that are pretty evenly matched right now. UCLA is certainly an improved team based off of 2020. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a big name in UCLA right now, and he's definitely bound for a great season. Once again, though, this is actually the first matchup for both of these teams, which makes it even more intriguing. We've never seen these two teams play each other, so that's definitely something to note heading into this matchup. And, of course, here's our stat comparison for this game. We got LSU, of course, last season, 32 points per game, 35 points allowed per game. They had 312 pass yards, 121 rush yards per game. So this was a heavy passing team last season. And then, of course, in the yards allowed category, 217 passing, 132 rushing. As for UCLA, this was also a high-scoring offense, 35 points per game, 31 points allowed. They had 224 pass yards a game, 230 rush yards. So we saw a rush-heavy offense with UCLA. And then 233 pass yards allowed, 142 rush yards allowed per game last season. So both of these teams definitely have got their positives in the stat comparison. LSU, of course, last season just was once again in a rebuilding season. We saw a brand new quarterback situation. We saw, it was pretty insane. If you look back at it, how talented that 2019 LSU team was. There was a reason why LSU won the national championship game back a couple of seasons ago. Joe Burrow and, the offensive skill players, Edwards-Helaire. It was insane how much talent looking back that LSU had on that specific football team in 2019. But anyway, looking at 2021, here's some key points for this matchup. Obviously, last season, LSU was 5-5. UCLA was 3-4. So yeah, tons of upside, though, for LSU heading into 2021. This is a team that last season, once again, was just a down year, but I think heading into 2021 is a different story. You've got a more experienced quarterback. It looks like Max Johnson is going to be the starter for Week 1, according to what I'm seeing here. But this is definitely a potential SEC contender in 2021. Alabama, of course, being in the SEC West, it's always brutal having to beat Alabama in the SEC West because, literally Alabama is the dynasty of college football right now. And so for teams like LSU and Texas A&M, it's been pretty tough trying to get to a conference championship game over the past decade. But, LSU's done it, so, it's definitely possible. But I think LSU is a contender in the SEC West. I don't really think that they're going to win it this season, but I do think that they'll be in the top 3 for sure in that SEC West this upcoming season. So this will be a good football team in 2021. As for UCLA, they were 3-4, one of the dark horse teams, I think, in the Pac-12 this upcoming season. They've been kind of a down team in the past 3 years or so. But for UCLA, I do think this is a team that I like them quite a bit. I think this is definitely a Bruins squad that I could see doing some damage in the Pac-12 and potentially being a contender as well. So do not sleep on UCLA heading into 2021. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, definitely one of the more underrated quarterbacks as well. His stats were actually pretty great last season, but he's not really been talked about much. But there's a lot of potential, though, for UCLA heading into 2021. So this is actually a very intriguing matchup, probably one of the more, I'd say, interesting ones of Week 1 here. Once again, both teams have never played each other, so that's a first. But also, I mean, it's SEC versus Pac-12. You got an LSU team that's on the rise, UCLA team that's on the rise. I mean, the winner of this game is going to be in pretty good shape, I think, heading into this season, especially if UCLA wins. If UCLA wins, they start off the season 2-0 with 2 very good wins. So that is definitely something to note. But that being said, here is my prediction for this matchup. I've got LSU prevailing in the end 34-31. It's going to be very close, potentially a bit higher scoring. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw over 60 points in this matchup. I've got 65 total right now. So I believe that is slightly, I might be wrong, but I think that's slightly under. But if you're betting the over-under in this matchup, you could easily go either way. Like, I could see this game going over as much as I could see it going under. So do be cautious there. Because, I mean, you got 2 offenses that are pretty unpredictable. I mean, UCLA's got a great offense. That's already known. But LSU, there are a couple of question marks here on the offensive side of things. But looking at the probability, I'm going to say LSU 60%, and your halftime score is going to be 24-17. So we'll see a pretty high scoring first half, I think, out of both of these teams. But yeah, LSU, I've got them getting the win in the end. I just think LSU is the better team. LSU in general, I mean, they should win this matchup. Like, they're the more talented team. They should win this game. But if UCLA wins, that is a huge statement, and that's definitely something to watch looking forward. I mean, you definitely going to want to keep an eye on UCLA if they do win this matchup, because the Bruins, they absolutely destroyed Hawaii, which Hawaii was a pretty good team in 2020. So, I mean, yeah, that's definitely something to watch out for. But if you're an LSU fan, this is not a guaranteed win. Do not go into this matchup thinking that you're getting a guaranteed win here, because it's going to be very close. I think UCLA hangs on for the majority of the game, but once again, I do have LSU prevailing, but it's going to be very close. So, yeah, 34-31 is my score prediction for this game. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.